Wedding venues, they're absolute masters of logistics, right? They host hundreds of people weekend after weekend. But what if I told you that most of them are overlooking a massive risk that's hiding in plain sight? Something as simple as the guest list. So let's get into why this is such a huge deal.
So here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. First up, we're going to expose the one critical question that most venues just can't answer. Then we'll dive into the real-world risks that this creates. After that, we'll figure out what's really going on with the root of the problem. And then finally, we'll show you the pro solution that flips this whole thing on its head.
All right, first up, the unanswered question. And this really gets to the core of this illusion of control that so many venues have. It's this huge disconnect between what they think they know and what's actually happening on the day of an event.
So here it is, the one simple but absolutely critical question that most venues, they just can't answer. Can you say with 100% certainty who has checked in and is on site right now? Even with a spreadsheet, the honest answer for most places is no. And that no, that's the crack in the foundation. It's the single point of failure where all the risk starts pouring in.
And this right here, this shows you that huge, dangerous gap between what venues think is happening and what's actually going down. Over on the left, you've got this perfect, orderly world where the list is flawless. But on the right, that's the messy reality of an actual event day. Unannounced +1 show up, names are spelled wrong, and that printed list is old news the second it's created. The bottom line is, the venue is left completely flying blind. So what happens when you're flying blind? Well, that brings us to section 2, the real-world risks. And listen, we're not just talking about little headaches here. We are talking about serious, high-stakes consequences. Okay, and this is where things get really, really serious. I mean, just think about an emergency for a second. A fire, a medical situation, any reason you need to evacuate. How are first responders supposed to do their jobs if the venue can't even tell them how many people are inside or who might need special help? It's a massive failure in basic safety.
And look, even when things are going smoothly, the day-to-day operational risks are just relentless. Your security team is struggling at the front door with a list that's wrong. Your catering team is trying to work with bad dietary info, which is a health risk in itself. It just makes the whole operation look disorganized and undermines all the hard work your staff is doing.
And that brings us right to the bottom line. This isn't just about a bad review or a clumsy evening, you know? When you operate without a real, verified record of who is on your property, you are opening yourself up to huge legal and financial liability. This isn't just some operational hiccup. It's a massive business risk, plain and simple.
So you gotta ask, why does this keep happening, even at really professional venues? Well, that brings us to our next section, the root of the problem. And it really all boils down to one thing, a process that is just fundamentally broken. So this is what that broken process usually looks like. See, the venue just waits. They wait for the client to send over emails, spreadsheets, you name it. And what do they get? Usually a bunch of different versions that don't even match. So then some poor staff member has to try and make sense of it all, slap it onto a printed list, which, by the way, is out of date the second it comes off the printer. The whole thing is completely reactive. It's not proactive at all.
And this gets to the core of it all. We call this passive information gathering. Basically, the venue is just sitting back and hoping the client sends them the right stuff. This puts them in a terrible position right from the start, leaving them to clean up the mess of all this fragmented, totally unverified data.
But, okay, the good news is there is a much, much better way, which brings us to our final section, the professional solution. And this is all about making a huge shift from being that passive receiver to taking active, total control of all that guest information.
So what does that actually look like? What does a real professional system do? Well, for starters, it's a live digital record. The info, names, dietary needs, all that stuff, it's captured directly from the guests themselves, so you know it's accurate. Your staff can pull up this list on a phone or a tablet and see in real time who's arrived. And here's the kicker. The venue is the one providing and controlling this system.
And that is the huge transformation we're talking about. You go from the old way, this static, inaccurate thing that's a huge liability, to the new way, a live, controlled system that's a real asset. You're not just plugging a hole here, you're turning a massive weakness into a serious professional strength. And get this, there's a totally unexpected, but really powerful advantage to doing this.
Because when you capture all that guest data the right way, names, emails, you're not just managing a single event anymore. You're actually building an incredible database of potential future clients. That thing that used to be a liability, it just became a goldmine for marketing, for getting referrals, and for booking future business.
So in the end, this is just a win-win-win for everyone. The couple, they feel organized, they feel in control. The guests, they have a super smooth experience, and they feel taken care of because their info is actually correct. And of course, the venue gets to operate with the kind of efficiency, safety, and professionalism that every modern business should have.
So this really leaves every single venue owner with one big question to ask themselves. Right now, as you're operating, is your guest list a ticking time bomb, a huge liability waiting to go off, or is it a valuable asset that's making you safer and growing your business? The choice, and really the responsibility, is all yours.